Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Wigan Fan TV. Joining us tonight, Stuart Minnis in the middle of your screen, and somebody who's trying to look like Matt McCauley at the far side. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, it's just in homage to Matt, who's feeling a little bit under the weather tonight, so I'm just going to be Matt's light tonight.
Have you got any sort of particularly sort of Matt phrases that you're going to throw in? Have you got a rap for the end of the show for us?
I've not got a rap. Oh my God, that's pressure. Didn't think of that. I'm just going to talk about Romain Navarrete for a little while, I think.
Navarrete had an interesting week last week, didn't he? Simbins giving away penalties. He's certainly lending himself well to the Wakefield fans, isn't he?
It certainly is. So yeah, we'll just wing it as we go because that's what Matt normally does.
Yeah, to be honest, Matt's not feeling particularly well, so that's why he's not with us tonight. But I was looking around to try and find when you sent a picture of yourself dressed up. I mean, you literally are a cravat short of Matt. I think.
I was looking everywhere for one. I'm going to buy one.
It's just a shame that I'm assuming none of us own a horn hat to be able to wear that. I found the flap cap. I thought I've seen Matt wear a flap cap before, so we can pop that on. But yeah, so Matt's not feeling too well, so he won't be joining us. So your ears are saved of. He's gone. Spencer's just put on. He's gone missing in a pub in York. Honestly, that was one of the funniest things that's ever happened on this show. When he was trying to find out where exactly he was in York when he was very, very drunk. Anyway, let's move on to something about rugby rather than Matt. Wigan versus Hull last weekend. Wigan 26, Hull 12. David, your initial thoughts to what looks like a comprehensive victory and lots of positives.
Yeah, I think it was a comprehensive victory. I mean, if you take out the sort of two tries that Hull got, one obviously gifted for a panic play in the last tackle and a full-length interception, another one from just a defensive fall-off in the centres. And yeah, it was pretty comprehensive. I was reading earlier about Scott Taylor. I was reading from the Hull Daily Mail about, how they're not that far off and they're disappointed that they lost and they thought they were the better team against Wigan. And I just thought, you clearly weren't. Wigan defended well. And like I said, they only gave away tries from silly mistakes. I thought the discipline was good. I thought the kicking game was good, which I'll come on to a little bit in a little bit as well around the kicking game. But yeah, really pleasing that performance. I think it sets us, it's not a bad place to be at this stage of the season.
And I think if you go back a couple of weeks before that defeat for Hull against Saints and before that Toronto game, that game ahead against Hull looked like a real big challenge, and I think a bit of a barometer for Wigan's season. And we've come through it with flying colours, really. Stu, your initial thoughts on a great win against Hull?
Yeah, magic, brilliant. Well done, Dom. Get back in there, done his bit. But if I was to single out a player, as soon as he come on, for what the highlights, obviously I didn't get the game, but for the highlights of what I've seen, Harry Smith, the kick, it was just, don't get me wrong, Jamie Shaw should have dealt with it, but there you go. It's ours, and at the end of the day, it's in the paper, isn't it? So, brilliant. But as you say, if a single player out, Harry Smith.
So we had slightly different this week, didn't we? Sam Powell returning, Harry Smith being on the bench, and used. It felt at a time that he wasn't going to be used during the game. It felt very much like Sam last year. And I was wondering whether he would come on and where he would come on. Obviously, he came on, had that impact pretty much straight away with the kick. Yeah. Do we see that being Harry Smith's role moving forward as having that optional playmaker and bringing him on? As and when is needed, or as and when Luluai or Powell need a rest, you?
Yeah, I think they should, Sean. For what I was listening to on the radio, I don't know if David said if he was there at the match, but if they were saying that he took a knock on his arm or his same thing, so I don't know if that why he come on earlier. I don't know, but that's what they were saying. The guy on Wigan radio was saying that he took a knock a little while on his arm.
Yeah, so it looked like a dislocated elbow that wasn't quite dislocated, I think.
It was a bit of a strange one as well with that, because I think the thing that frustrated a lot of the Wigan fans was the inconsistency from the ref. Hicks was there and one of the Hull players looked like he dislocated his finger or did something to his wrist or his hand in back play behind Wigan's line, and he blew up and stopped play just so this player could get treatment when Wigan had the ball, and he wasn't interfering. It wasn't a head injury, so it just didn't make any sense. And then Lulai, as soon as he went into that impact, his shoulder dropped, and I thought his shoulder had gone completely at that point. But that was play further back as well, and the referee waited until Wigan had got play. Wigan had got the ball before stopping play for Lulai, and it was just like there was no. It was a bit of an inconsistent performance from Hicks. But going back to Harry Smith and that use, Sean, what I was alluding to about, I sat around some fans, and when Harry Smith came on a couple of weeks ago, and he was trying some kicks and stuff, and some of the older fans around us were giving him not a hard time because he's a young kid, but sort of saying, "Oh well, he kicks too much. He kicks too much. He needs to learn to do. He needs to learn to do better." And I was thinking, he's a kid who's, for me, that's his biggest asset, his kicking game. That is his biggest asset. He can give us the difference. And literally about 2 plays later, he did a little grubber kick that forced a repeat set that we scored from. And I was thinking, he complaining that he's kicking too much now, And I just think he's an ideal player to have on. Obviously, like you said about Samet not being used, I think the advantage Harry Smith's got is he's got his age on his side. He's a young kid coming through and trying to make an impact, and I think that'll stand him in good stead. And like I said, with Powell and Lulai, Powell with obviously his injury concerns lately, and Lulai is not getting any younger, there's plenty of opportunity there for him to be used, and he can change a game, or he can make an impact like he did last week against Hull.
As you're speaking, we've got the highlights on underneath your chin actually at the minute, David, which you can't see. And Manfredi's just scored, which takes us on to Manfredi. Anybody else shocked to see him put straight in now? Obviously named in the 21-man squad, or how many people we name now. I genuinely didn't expect to see him. I thought it was one of those, get him into the match day squad and slowly build him up sort of mentally with sort of the preparation of getting around the game. I was very, very surprised, very concerned actually to see him in the starting lineup. It felt like a couple of reserve games and pre-season games, building up sort of 60 minutes. I think he'd been playing in the reserves to then going to a first team game against big players in the centres and wingers in Hull, an area that they've beaten us in when Fanua was with Hull in his original spell. Came through it absolutely brilliantly, scored a try, and he just makes those yards, doesn't he, that we potentially have missed. Pretty harsh on Burgess. He probably had his best game in a long while last week against Toronto. But Stu, obviously pleased to see Manfredi back. And what do you think the future holds now? We've got 3 fit wingers fighting for those spaces.
Brilliant to see him back. Absolutely brilliant. I'm not going to budge you like we did the other week, but the man's got his chance now. Budgie's had his chance. I don't think the only way he'll happen is if we get an injury. We don't want to mention that word because the guy's been through too many injuries. So let's hope the dark days is gone from Mr. Manfredi. As for what he done, for what they've seen in the highlights on the game on Sunday, absolute faultless.
There was a few comments coming through about the loan deals that have happened this week. Clueless Cookie asking on YouTube. It's a great name, Clueless Cookie. We will be going on to the loans in just a while, just to talk about those. But David, your thoughts on the future of the wing position, and pleased to see Manfredi come back from two serious knee injuries, and this one's just less than 12 months, which is absolutely incredible in terms of a recovery. It happened in April 2019, and less than 12 months later he's playing first team rugby again, which is a remarkable return considering it's the second time it's happened.
Yeah, he's on his day he's one of the best wingers in Super League, isn't he? There's no mistaking that. The season when he got his first injury was in the Dream Team. It just offers you something a little bit different. I was a bit concerned about the wingers, beginning of the season, letting Davis go, because I really rate Davis.
Yeah.
I thought it was a bit of I can understand why he went, but I would prefer Davis over the other two, which you think, is that wise with the try scoring record that Burgess and Marshall have? And I just think they give us that consistency. Manfredi will give us that consistency driving the hard yards. He doesn't make very many mistakes, whereas you feel like you're only a few minutes away from a Burgess mistake. I don't know why we don't try. Centre's a bit of a struggle at the moment. We've got people filling in. We're obviously waiting for Oliver Gildart to come back, which hopefully won't be too far away. But I don't see why we wouldn't try Burgess in the centre. He's big enough, but I think he's lost a bit of pace and a bit of confidence with his wing play. So why not? I'm sure that could be an option if the season sort of progresses and Marshall and Manfredi seem to be nailing down the spots.
Essentially an option. Obviously, we've got Hankinson playing in the reserves and playing seemingly quite well in the reserves as well, scoring pretty much a try a game, I think, so far in the reserves. I always worry when we talk about wingers turning to centres. I think a few years ago when we had the injuries, Joe Burgess had a few games there, didn't he, at centre? It feels like it should work, but so often than not, I don't think it does. Centre to winger seems to work pretty well. If you remember Darryl Golden a few years ago, even Gildart on the wing, was it Saints away a couple of years ago with Isa in centre? That seems to work well, but winger to centre, I mean, somebody might correct me and give me sort of a fantastic example of when that's worked recently really, really well. But for me, that I just don't, the skill sets don't seem to work the other way as they do from centre to wing. I don't know why that is, and maybe it's just me. But yeah, I mean, what about Bibby in that role? He seems to be getting through yardage. Obviously, he's, in terms of try scoring record, it's not really happened yet. That link-up play with Hastings we saw glimpses of really in the Warrington game, but not much since. Do you think we'll see Hankinson get an opportunity in there over the next few weeks, Stu?
Unless he gets injured, I can't see it. Good standing to come in, hell of a standing to come in. Kicker, as we know, kick them from all over the paddock, that guy. But unless something happens, because he did go off, I think, on Sunday for a head test, I think, Bibby, but he passed it and come back on. But after, I'll be honest with you, Sean, I'll be honest with you, David, that's the only way I can see him getting in. Yeah.
Which seems strange considering we're giving him the number 3 jersey, doesn't it? David, your thoughts on that? Do you think Hankinson deserves an opportunity soon?
I think so. I mean, Bibby's obviously played with Hastings before, but he's in a totally new team. So I think it's a new winger as well outside him. So I think he'll get a few more games. Yeah, I don't think he's done any. I think he's been solid. I don't think he's really caused us. He's not made any glaring mistakes or done anything wrong. Like you say, his try scoring's not up to scratch. But I think the interesting thing for me on that one is that the link up really between Hastings and Farrell seems to be hitting off, and the golden edge now that Williams has gone. It seems to me that Farrell's always there and willing, and with a try, and it's helping us a lot. So I think that might be taking the shine up it as well a little bit. I think he's getting that support that he thrived off with Bibby last season, just a few more metres inside from Farrell.
That left edge looks different, obviously, without Williams, but it looks as dynamic as it ever has done, with that added dimension of Bevan French being that sort of follow-up, sort of supporting fullback, like probably we've not really had since about like Chris Radlinski and Terry Newton link-up play comes to my mind every time I see that try with Farrell running through and then Bevan French on his inside. That kind of link-up play, Bevan French knew exactly where that player was going, which is really, really exciting. And Zach Hardacre continuing to do a solid job on somebody's phone's ringing. Go on, who is it? That is an incredible ringtone. Please answer it.
There you go. Answer it.
Right, let's move on to what's happened this week in terms of the loan deals, which have been quite interesting. First of all, Joe Greenwood going over to Leeds for 2 months. So Joe Greenwood not really been in the England, not really been in the Wigan side since his concussion issues during the season last year. Played fantastically well for us on the left edge. If we remember his games against St Helens in the year 2 seasons ago, when he basically ran over Danny Richardson for a game. We've seen the best of Joe Greenwood at times, but we've not seen a consistent performer really. His best position seems to be Liam Farrell's position, unfortunately. Stu, your thoughts on that and the idea it's a 2-month loan? Is that it now for Joe Greenwood in terms of his Wigan career, do you think?
I think it is. At the end of the day, Big Willer and Fast 12, they're absolutely bossing it in the second row this year. Brilliant. It's a shame with the guy because when he first come, when he pressed Staines, and as you said, run up at Danny Richardson, he wasn't there, man. But no, it's a shame. But let's see how it gets on after 2 months. And take it from there. But no, it'd be a really shame because he come with such promise when he come. I think it was a replacement for Joel. I think
It was Bateman's replacement, wasn't he? Really, he came over partway through the season after Joe left, but I think he was always signed as Bateman's replacement, wasn't he? Which is quite striking, I think, considering the development of Smithies and Partington in that time since Bateman's gone. David, is this it now for Joe Greenwood? I mean, we had Escaray out on loan last year, and he's back with the squad, but I don't imagine he'll have a future at Wigan. I can't imagine. Do these loan deals ever sort of develop into a player coming back and being a consistent performer for the parent team? Again, I can't think of any.
No, I think that's the idea, isn't it? I think we can sort of give them the loan deal, and then it's like, well, go and prove yourself over there. Obviously, Navarrete went on loan to Catalan and then came back and was a much better player in his second spell. Probably the only example I can think of where a loan deal's figured out. But see, I told you again.
Yeah, no, that's well done.
With Greenwood, I think the sort of scariest thing for me is that until they mentioned the loan deal, I'd forgotten about him this season. Completely forgotten about him. And like you're saying, that's not just with Isa and Farrell. It is. If you ask me which player would I rather have, on the bench, and you've got a choice of the likes of Smithies or Partington or Byrne or Greenwood, you pick them every time. You pick the kids every time because they've come through the system. They know what the club's about, and John Greenwood obviously knows what it's about, but it just feels different. And yeah, I can't see him coming back. If he does smash it at Leeds and he comes back in 2 months, he could be a very important player for the rest of the campaign. But I just don't think that'll happen. I think Leeds are sort of giving him 2 months just to see how he fares injury wise.
Yeah,
and then whether it's worth them taking a punt on him in the long term, I wouldn't imagine he's on small amount. I would imagine he's taking up a decent sized chunk of the salary cap, having been signed, as Bateman's replacement from the NRL. He's not going to be on peanuts, is he?
I think there's a few things in this loan deal, isn't there? I think it's a win-win situation for Wigan. They send a player out to get experience, to get real game day experience for Leeds. He's playing at a good team. He'll be playing in a good system there. He's going to get that sort of not 80 minutes, but as close to 80 minutes as he'll play probably week in, week out. He's going to get that. If he absolutely smashes it, and we have injuries or we have a drop in form for Willie Isa, or Liam Farrell picks up an injury like he did last year, and we've got an informed Joe Greenwood that we can recall, what a fantastic situation that is. If in 2 months' time, my thought is if in 2 months' time nothing's changed in terms of injuries, it'll be renewed again for another 2 months and we'll go with that. I think if that continues, he has a great season, it justifies a transfer fee for Wigan. Like you said, he's not going to be on small money. He's come from the NRL, signed as Bateman's replacement on a long-term deal. So it's going to be costing Wigan quite a bit to have him at the club. So if Leeds are paying that salary or part of that salary, I think that's a good move for Wigan. So either we get an informed player back to replace somebody that's injured at some point during this year, which is quite nice if we need it. But if we don't need it, we should then be able to justify a transfer fee rather than trying to sell a player at the end of the season or partway through the season who's been pretty much playing reserve grade all year, because all that's doing is his transfer value is going down week in, week out, isn't it? And there's lots of comments about his head injuries as well. It's difficult because you don't know where that may lead to. We were really cautious with him when he came back from those two last year, so cautious that he didn't really play. So yeah, for me it feels like a sensible deal from Wigan, and it's interesting that we're potentially freeing up a bit of salary cap, which may mean something for that customary sort of halfway through the season signing from Australia that we tend to find, like Ben Cross or Frank Paul Nuasala. I'm sure we'll have one of those again at some point this year. It would just want to be Bevan French last year, Joe Greenwood. It doesn't feel like Wigan if we don't sign somebody in sort of July time, does it? So that leads to our second loan deals. Your favourite club, Toronto, Stu. We've loaned Jack Wells and Kilner over to Toronto on 1 month deals. Jack Wells and Kilner played really, really well in pre-season. I remember us talking about him, how impressive he was. Obviously not had that opportunity yet. Neither's Jack Wells, coming back from really bad injuries. Happy to see them go out on loan, Stu, and are you happy to see them at Toronto?
Well, we've got to give them help, haven't we? Come on, man. You know what I mean? We've got to give them help, Sean. Come on. poor little people at Toronto. They're on the big fat zero. But let's see how many other teams jump in and help them. So there you go.
Is it not a case that we're helping them, but they're helping us to give game time for two players who we'd like to see them in the first team, but we just can't. Yeah. We can't take anybody out of there at the minute.
Yeah. Swings and roundabouts, isn't it? We're helping them, they're helping us. We're giving them they're getting our fitness to level.
Yeah.
So it swings and roundabouts, So there you go.
David, your thoughts on that? Again, I don't know whether the month will take in any games. It won't yet take in any games at Toronto, will it? Because it'll be April, the first games that they'll play, so we won't actually get, as young lads, we won't get that experience, unfortunately, of travelling over to Canada. They'll get to travel to Warrington to play St Helens this weekend, but I guess that's a bit of experience for them. Is it a good move for you, David?
Definitely, particularly Kilner. I was surprised to see Jack Wells go, to be honest with you, because I know that when Chris Radlinski was talking about the Greenwood deal and how that came about, Jack Wells' name was mentioned by Radlinski as one of the reasons why we were so open to let Greenwood go. So, but like I say, it makes sense. At the minute, the park's pretty much.
It's solid, isn't it?
Tight at Wigan. Yeah, it's you think of the players that are still missing. We've got Lockers out. I think we've given Lockers another couple of weeks because they don't want him to do any exercise whatsoever. So Lockers is going to be out for a bit longer. Because they don't want to raise his blood pressure, so he's not allowed to even go on a bike or anything in that respect. And then you obviously got George Burgess with his hip injury, and we've got players out, but the pack's still. Hull are a big team, and we bossed them, and the youngsters in there. So I think I was surprised to see Wells go, but I can't see it being anything but positive for Wigan. Like you say, it's experience for young lads. Still very early on in their careers, and they're playing top flight against other teams. So good move, definitely.
And this sort of spell of loan deals, if it is freeing up part of the cap for a period of time, it sort of adds that question again about Ben Flower. Are we still confident Ben Flower will be a Wigan player come, say, July, Stu?
No, I don't think. I know rumours is rumours, and it sets off as a pebble, and it gathers into the boulder, doesn't it? So we'll wait and see. But
won't go away, will it, that rumour?
No, and it's everywhere you look. The amount of people that's saying about it. So let's wait and see what happens. Because at the end of the day, when you weigh up the ex-Wigan players that's there, they'll definitely be our B team then. When you weigh up Davis, Tompkinses, McAlorum, Teeny, list goes on, doesn't it? So let's wait and see. But come July, I don't think he'll be a Wigan player. Maybe wrong. Come July, sure. Who was wrong, but I don't think he will.
It was interesting a couple of weeks ago for that Toronto game when at half-time when he seemed to be giving Adrian Lamb tactical advice, which was caught on the Sky cameras, which was interesting and also kind of concerning. But David, sorry, you were going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say with the rumours, obviously there is the rumour of Catalans. I was reading something again. I don't know why it's switched from Warrington to Hull, but I was reading a Q&A a few weeks ago with Hull Daily Mail and the Hull KR coach, and they were asking about rumours about they're looking to reinforce the pack, and the rumour over there was somebody asked if Ben Flower was on the radar. So you kind of get wondering then if he's being touted almost by Wigan to other clubs as available. But I think a lot of it is very much dependent upon Burgess's hip, and if Burgess sort of comes through with flying colours over the next few weeks and shows that he's over that hip injury, then I think he'll definitely be on his way. But I think at the moment we're going to be a bit wary to do anything just in case Burgess has a problem and it turns into a long-term problem, just for the experience. Really, I don't think we'll struggle with players with fitness and form, with the likes of Liam Byrne, smashing it, and Ollie Partington, they're there. But I think sometimes you just need that little bit of experience in the pack, which Flower and club bring.
Jimmy puts on there, he thinks Ben Flower may retire. He can't seem to get match fit. It's another added one as well, isn't it? He struggled again back end of last year with his fitness, and Tony Clubb had an improved performance. last week, and like you say, we've got George Burgess to come back in, and I think for George Burgess and Adrian Lamb, it's about getting George Burgess into that team at the right time, because he can't afford to have another Warrington experience where he's not 100% fit and the confidence starts dropping from him, and then fans start asking questions of him. But I think he's probably only got a good 2 or 3 more weeks, actually, George Burgess, before questions start getting asked of him anyway, with the fact that he's a marquee player and we've had 10 minutes from him so far. So hopefully we'll see him fit and ready in the team over the next couple of weeks. Moving on to this week, I don't think at the start of the season, what are we, a few weeks into the season, I would have expected this to be first versus second in the table, obviously very early on, but Huddersfield, the only team with a 100% record so far. Mr. Caesar seems to be pulling all the strings for them, and everything seems to be coming from him. David, are you expecting a much improved Huddersfield side? And considering that they've played one game less than everybody else, because of the game that was called off, I think it was against Leeds a few weeks back, are they as good as what the position says that they are at the minute, or?
Well, they can only beat the teams that are in front of them. I know they've played one game less, but yeah, I'm expecting a much improved team, and I think it's fair play to Huddersfield sticking by Wolford, and it was under a lot of pressure, and yeah, Caesar is obviously the key in the key that's unlocked everything there. Everything runs through him, and definitely an upgrade on what they've had in the past. But yeah, I'm expecting a tough game. I've not seen them that much, but I've been listening, I've been reading up, and you can't knock them. They've not been playing everybody, and it'll be a big test for Huddersfield, but it's not Wigan's favourite ground by any stretch.
It hasn't been, has it, recently?
It's not at all.
Caesar and Gaskell look to be a good combination, Jimmy says on there. Stu, what are you expecting? They're kind of a team that I think went very much under the radar in the close season, apart from the signing of Caesar. They've managed to keep, I guess, the team that they wanted together. There's that sort of Canberra connection as well with the coaching staff and the players that they're bringing over and sending over there now, I think, isn't it? Huddersfield are sending youngsters over to Canberra to train. Is this Wigan's biggest test so far, or is this harder than the whole game last week?
Well, let's hope we don't go complacent. That's all I hope. I hope we just go all guns, me, looking to start the season, if somebody had said, "Oh well, we'll win 3 and we'll lose 1," you'd be like, "Yeah, I'll take that." And yeah, where we are at the minute, it's great, because to me, our engine room at the minute, you've got French, you've got your 1, your 6, your 9, and they're all pulling the strings like a machine that's going to click into action. So let's hope. I can't see it being a one-way score, but I think you're going to get like the whole result. So let's hope it's our victory. So we're going to say a Friday night there, so Sunday afternoon.
Gary puts on the comment there of not going to underestimate Huddersfield. We can always find a way to lose at Huddersfield, which is probably that I think has probably been Wigan over. Certainly last season, we seemed to find ways to lose games, didn't we? Get in front, let teams back in it, and then maybe lose it. The game last week felt very much like it was a change in probably in the mental state from Wigan, in as much as they got in front in that first half. Yes, Hull did come back, but that second half there was much better game management from the likes of Hastings that we were missing massively last season. Yeah. And this I think is the next test for Wigan. If it can be similar to the Hull game, is whether we can do that, manage the game, get in front, keep in front, and manage the game away from home when things, Huddersfield will test Wigan, no doubt, on Sunday. There's a comment just gone by about Jermaine McGilvray got back into form as well, which is always going to be a threat. He always seems to perform really well against us and gives them a real dynamic coming out of their own half as well. David, how do you see the game going? And do you expect to see any changes from Wigan in the team? Obviously, we're ahead of when the squads will come out on Friday. So do you expect any changes from Wigan?
No, I don't really. It'll be interesting to see how Manfredi goes. Just going back to the squad, actually, Sean, remember when you said about Manfredi not being named in the 21-man squad originally?
He was in the squad. What I meant, he was in the squad. What I meant by that was the fact that he was in the squad, and I just felt it was one of those where they dropped. they kind of get people back into the match day squad and like build them in slowly.
Yeah.
Did they do it with Clark just before his debut a couple of weeks ago? But he was definitely in the squad because we didn't lose the interchange.
But I think it'll be it's probably a similar game to the whole game. Hoping for a similar result. I don't think there'll be many changes. I don't think there's much you can change really. The defensively we were sound apart from the 2 lapses and in attack we look sharp. French terrifies people. His pace and his initial burst of speed. He can just seems to get. He doesn't try and go through. He just sort of looks and waits until the biggest gap's there and goes around them. So yeah, I wouldn't change anything at all really. Unless there's been any injuries, depending on how Tommy is. But Powell and Luluai interchange quite freely, and Hastings interchanges quite freely with players. Hardacre and French seem to be to and fro, depending on whether we're attacking or defending. So there's quite a lot of fluidity there, which is pleasing because teams don't really know. They prepare, but they don't really know who's going to be where at certain points, and I think it just helps us a little bit.
I think what we've not seen yet from Bevan French is that 80-minute performance. I think he's quite openly admitting that, isn't he, in his interviews, that sort of transition to fullback that he's gone through is probably affecting his way of being involved in the game all of the time, and that's something that hopefully we'll see over the next few weeks. Stu, would you change anything in the team? Does Manfredi keep? Obviously, Manfredi scored a try. Burgess scored a try the week before that. Did you keep Manfredi in? Do you make any changes?
Nah, I wouldn't make any changes. I'd keep the same squad. Go there with the same lads, and let's see what we can do. Definitely wouldn't change a thing. Unless there's injuries, as you say, you're going to change. Alarm niggles, you're going to change. But nah, I wouldn't. The only thing we've got to look out for is that daft cowbell.
I've just put one of Matt McCauley's comments on the screen there about the cowbell. I think for me, in terms of, I think there's a couple of things where it may get changed. Whether Manfredi can do to get, whether they sort of view it as put him in, take him out, put Burgess in. I don't know. I'm intrigued to see how that winger sort of conundrum goes around. Particularly, this is Burgess's last season as well, isn't it? Under contract, we only gave him a 1-year extension last year as well. So it's interesting to see how we use that. I think it'll come in vital at various points in the season when we change people for resting them. But I just don't think we're that far into the season yet to risk those combinations that are not embedded yet. My only question mark, I sound like a broken record, is over Tony Clubb. I think we had a better performance from him last week, but if George Burgess is fit for the squad this week, and if he's fit enough to be in the squad, you would expect him to be fit enough to play. That's where the only change that I would make it. But if George Burgess wasn't fit enough to play, I wouldn't take Tony Clubb out, because I think if you lose that experience of Tony Clubb, you need to bring an experience in. So I wouldn't bring one of the youngsters in for that. But if it feels like in a good place, a team that can dominate Hull's pack, and play with the flair that we played. So we played very, very good rugby on Sunday, and it only bodes well moving forward. Score predictions, David, before we go to your wrap.
Yeah. I think it's going to be another close one, but I'm going to go with maybe 20 points to 10.
Stu?
23-12.
You always go for these drop goals.
Steve Orrell, you know what it is? He's been watching Steve all the year, and he you know what he was like. It's got in the head also at one point. Yeah. Psychologically, there you go.
I think I remember being at Huddersfield a few years ago, and Tommy Luluai kicked a drop goal.
Right.
Yeah, I think I was there, and I think that's what I saw. I'm sure that happened.
It's a shame Mark's not on.
Yeah, he would tell us straight away. So what will I go for? I think Wigan, I'm going low scoring. Spencer's already put in here that Wigan are going to score 48 points, which will be interesting.
What?
Wigan, I'm going to go Huddersfield 4, Wigan 16. I think everything's consistent in there, as you would expect on Wigan Fan TV, for Wigan to win, apart from the Wigan Runner, who's obviously not watching because he's not told us that Huddersfield are going to win. One last thing before we move on, unless there's anything else that anybody wants us to talk about. Gary just puts a question about any chance to discuss Lockers being out indefinitely. I know you touched on it previously, David, just about his eye. Do you want to just sort of repeat what you said? So he's been told no exercise as far as you're concerned.
Yeah, so I think the original this was from Phil Wilkinson today. So I think originally he was told he was expected to be out for a couple of weeks, I should say. He's been told he can't do any training whatsoever, so he can't even start any training for at least another 2 weeks. There's been a bit of with his eye. They don't want to cause anything that would raise the blood pressure, which then could cause some damage in his eye. So obviously it's a bit of a sensitive area. We don't want to do anything to affect his long-term future. So he can't even start training for 2 weeks. So it's not indefinite, but until we get him back in training, there's no definite timeline on it.
I like the idea of Sean O'Loughlin coming back with a Pirates patch on his eye for his last season, which would be interesting. Spencer's put on here about the Thomas Luluai drop goal that I think I remember seeing. Spencer adds that he was probably going for a grubber kick, which is probably about right. I think that was a draw, that game. I'm sure it was a draw. And Aaron asks, what pub is everyone going to on Sunday? So I'll put that comment up on there for you, Aaron. I'm sure people can tell you. But if Matt McCauley gets in touch with you to tell you a pub, just don't believe it, because he doesn't know the names of pubs when he goes in there, as we found out in York last year. So everybody, thank you for watching again this evening. Matt McCauley, aka David Bailey, this evening. Thank you for stepping in and dressing up. Just a cravat short of Matt McCauley. I feel like that's it's a good name of a band almost, a cravat short. And have you got a crack screen as well?
No.
It looks like a crack going straight across your chin. Probably should have told you that at the start of the show, but never mind.
All right.
Stu, thank you for taking the time, as always, to join us. And thank you, everybody, for watching. And we'll be back again next week to hopefully Wigan top of the table this time next week when we're back on air. So thanks, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers, guys.